I love Africa, bro. I really do. I'm kind of mad that I didn't come here more sooner.
ISHOWSPEED is showing to us in real time what real Africa looks like.
Man, this whole time, bro, they made us think Africa was such a poor country, bro. Such a place you wouldn't want to be at, bro. And speed is single-handedly changing my perspective on life.
I can't speak for other countries, but people growing up in the States, you see Africa, especially as a kid, you see Africa as like some like desert with really primitive people just walking around with spears and shit. But what Speed is doing, he's showing you all the cities and all this shit in there. It's more than that.
All right. Welcome back to This Week in Ghana. This week we have a lot to talk about. ISHOWSPEED will be coming to Ghana shortly. But before we get into today's stories, we always like to start with intros. So I'll turn it over to our co-host before I introduce myself.
Hello, my name is Ivy Prosper. I am the founder of Prosper Creative Group, my media company where I tell stories from Africa and the African diaspora from our lens. And I also have a book called Your Essential Guide on Moving to Ghana, which is available on Amazon. And I'm also a speaker, and I also work as a producer in documentary film and series. And I am excited to have this conversation today because one of the things I do is I do talk about what's happening in Africa and in the diaspora. So this is going to be a really engaging conversation again.
Absolutely. And I'm Joe Hatagwa, founder of Authentic African Media Group. Our goal is to help people do one of three things: visit, move, invest on the continent. We are bridging the gap between those living on the continent and those in the diaspora. Also have an e-commerce store where we sell products made in Africa to those living abroad, and merch as well. So if you want to support, you can head over there. Now, we are all aware that ISHOWSPEED has come to Africa. So a little bit of background on ISHOWSPEED. So he is a streamer, for those of you who are unfamiliar, a company called Twitch, which was acquired by Amazon probably like 10 or 15 years ago for about $200 million. Basically what they do is people live stream for extended periods of time. It started out with gamers. Eventually people would live stream all kinds of random stuff. ISHOWSPEED is one of the top streamers, and he does what they call IRL streams, in real life streams, where he goes somewhere and he streams instead of just in front of his computer as we are streaming live here. He streams with cameras and crews, and he goes out and he has the chat on his wrist, on his phone. He's watching the chat, and he streams in real life. So he announced about 2.5 months ago that he would be doing the Africa tour. It's called Speed Does Africa Tour. And it was a 28-day IRL streaming project running roughly from December 29th through late January. It's going to be 20 countries in 28 days. The countries he announced were everything from Algeria to Zimbabwe, quite a substantial list. Most of the countries were either southern, eastern, northern, and west. There aren't really too many Central African countries that he put on his list. He's already done, from what I understand, many of the Southern African countries, the East African countries he's been to. And it looks like North Africa he's in right now because he's just reached Egypt. He's done some streams from Egypt over the last couple of days, which means next he will be going to West Africa. We don't know what days, we don't know when, but he will be in Ghana because Ghana is on his list of countries. And so just so you guys know, for West Africa, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Liberia, Nigeria are all on his, Senegal, are all on his list of West African countries that he will be visiting. So I anticipate sometime next week or later in the week next week, or maybe even early the following week, he will be in West Africa, and specifically at some point he will be in Ghana. So, you know, he's visited a bunch of countries. I think he's had a bunch of viral moments. There was a moment where he was in Botswana. He tried to buy a diamond and found out that Botswana only sells their diamonds to 2 companies, which I thought was an interesting moment. And then there was obviously he jumped with the Maasai and did so many other things to get involved with the local culture. So yeah, I mean, Ivy, what are your thoughts on ISHOWSPEED'S, you know, Africa tour and how he's gone about doing it?
Well, the interesting thing is that, as you said earlier, we have people like Wodemaya who'd been showing Africa to the world. Tayo Ena was also doing the same before he shifted to start showing the whole world rather than just Africa. We have people in the African and diaspora spaces who've been doing exactly this, showcasing Africa in a different light and showing the culture and the history and different experiences. However, as you said at the top of the conversation, ISHOWSPEED, you know, he has an American audience who are now tuned in, even in greater numbers. And his audience aren't necessarily only African Americans, but he has a huge following. Because I think one of his platforms, he has like 48 million people. And I know he has that across all his platforms. There's different, you know, chunks of people on each YouTube or Instagram or TikTok and on Twitch, of course. So I think that having someone who has that much of a huge following has had a greater expanding on people who are able to see the stories of Africa. And that's why we're seeing some of the reactions that we're seeing, because some of these people have never seen other creators who've been doing this for the last maybe decade. So I think that it's great to see another person who is of a different spectrum to kind of be showcasing the same thing. And I think it all plays into the African cultural strategies and tourism strategies. I think that there's a lot of tourism boards and agencies that are really trying to tap into him. They see the value that he's bringing. So a lot of them want to connect with him while he's in their respective countries, which is very smart for anybody who's in marketing to want to connect with him to promote something. And it's an opportunity to also teach history because, you know, he's learned when he was in Ethiopia. I saw that he found out that, you know, Ethiopia is the one that really brought the concept of coffee culture to the world, starting from there. And then also the idea that the historical fact that Ethiopia was an African country that never was colonized. He learned that as well. He said he had no idea. So it's an opportunity to learn things about Africa, learn about the experiences. So I think that it's a really good thing. And I wonder what inspired him to decide he wanted to tour Africa.
Yeah, I'm interested as well. I mean, I know he's done other regions. He's done Latin America. He's gone to Brazil and he's gone to Asia, of course, many countries in Asia. I'm happy that he finally came to the continent of Africa and then he decided to do 20 countries. You know, other streamers have come to the continent and I think they've missed the opportunity. You know, I did a live stream about the fact that I was disappointed in other streamers coming to Africa and not really fully spending some serious time at different countries and trying to learn more about different cultures within each of these countries. And to your point, yeah, we had talked about this offline. You know, Wodemaya is, we always, in our world, he's the biggest content creator who focuses on Africa content, right? He was the first person to get to 1 million subs as a person who talks to camera. Besides, like, musicians and stuff have always had bigger platforms, but as a person who talks to camera and explores Africa, he was always the biggest. And that was always incredible for us to kind of watch his rise and to see what he's been able to do. And he's always been a great ambassador for Africa. I do always feel like that still was limited in a world of, you know, almost 9 billion people. 1 million subscribers barely scratches the surface. And all of the work that we all do combined still was not enough to get as much as the exposure that was needed. And so someone like ISHOWSPEED coming to the continent, I think, has done a lot. For context, he has 48 million YouTube subscribers, 46 million on TikTok, 43 million on Instagram. He has 6 million on Facebook, 6 million on Snapchat, and he has 3.8 million on X. And then he has 2.8 million on Twitch, according to what I'm reading here from...
you said 2.8 million on Twitch?
That's what they're saying,
Okay.
Total followers. I don't know if all of those people are paid subscribers, but that's what they're saying. Yeah.
Right. And one of the things that people watching need to understand also is on YouTube, I can speak about YouTube analytics because I pay attention to the analytics being a YouTube creator myself, is that the majority of the people who view your content haven't even subscribed to your content. So for instance, I have 37,000 subscribers, but yet I get over 250,000 views every month. And that's for 37,000 subscribers. So like 70% of people who watch my content haven't actually subscribed. So if he has 48 million actual subscribers, that means he could be easily having like up to 200 million people watching his content, even if they're not subscribed, you know? So that's something to think about as well, that their reach becomes even bigger because there's a lot of people watching, because I'm not subscribed to him, but I've been watching the content while he's been in Africa now, you know? So a lot of times people are watching, but they're not actually subscribed. So that subscriber count is beneficial, but the number actually expands greater.
Absolutely. And he also has what they call earned media too, meaning other people also post his content, right? So, you know, people are clipping his content and posting it on their own channels and reacting to his content as well. So it even has a further reach because a lot of his content, I became aware of him coming to the continent by other people talking about him coming, because I actually hadn't seen his content in my feed. I do sometimes see clips of other people do of his content, but this was the first that it's been obviously pouring in my feed because he's had so many viral moments on the continent. And you know, you and I spoke about this earlier. You know, the way he's interacted with the local communities everywhere he goes, I think is hugely important. It's not just coming to the continent and you know, doing what he normally does, or what some of these people normally do, where they just do like dating shows and stuff like that. He still went on dates and stuff like that because that's always interesting to his audience, but he actually went to meet with the Maasai tribe. And, you know, he did like actual tours, right? Like, you know, people pay money for these tours. He went on all these tours. You see that he's gone to the pyramids of Giza. He's gone to meet the Maasai tribe while he was in Kenya. You had mentioned that he drank blood with the Maasai tribe.
Yes, he did. He drank blood with the Maasai tribe, and there's a lot of people who are, it's the two extremes. People are like happy he embraced what they do, and then there's those who are like, that's disgusting. Some people saying, you're an American, you have an American stomach, why are you doing this? You're going to make yourself sick. And then there was somebody else who was saying what he's doing is evil, it's a ritual, why is he doing this evil ritual? So there's been like all kinds of dynamics of responses to him doing what he was doing within the Maasai culture.
Yeah, and you know, and I think it's really important because, you know, like I said, other streamers have come to the continent, and I think that they had missed opportunities, right? And so I'm really excited to see what ISHOWSPEED is doing, because I was a little skeptical. You know, I saw his promo video, and it was a great promo video. You know, he's working out at the beach, and he finds this globe, and Africa lights up. But on his way to coming to the continent, he did a geographical quiz where it was like, which countries are where, and he got like 8 out of 10, which wasn't bad. So, you know, I was actually shocked and surprised, but happily surprised. And so I'm interested to see what he does in Ghana. I presume he'll go to Kwame Nkrumah Museum. I was just recently there, and the upgrades that they've made are incredible to that place. And then also, I would imagine he's going to go to Cape Coast Castle. I can't imagine he wouldn't, or any of the castles. I would imagine he will. So I look forward to seeing what he does in Ghana, and I hope that by him spending this time on the continent, it gets more people interested. And that will allow these kinds of stories and these kinds of live streams to get to more people, right? Because that's our goal, right? Our goal is to impact as many lives as possible, get as many people to think about coming back to the continent and do it responsibly and do their research beforehand. And we want to present that the information, the knowledge we have from our experiences. So I look forward to seeing what he does next and where he goes when he gets to West Africa. Any final thoughts on ISHOWSPEED before we move on?
No, that's it.
All right, cool. So I guess one last thing I'll mention is you saw in that video people's responses. You know, you would think, you know, the country of Africa, you know, you still see that there's a lot that people can learn about the continent of Africa, right?
Yeah.
And just by hearing some of those responses, it's clear that we needed this, right? The work that we all do, we try to reach as many people as we can. But this clearly has shown a new light. I mean, there are people saying that he single-handedly, you know, reversed 400 years of, you know, of racism and all kinds of other things. I mean, it's interesting to see people's responses to him coming to the continent. But I think overall it's a good thing, and I'd like to see where it goes next. So stay tuned. We're hoping that the numbers increase and that more people come to watch the content. All right. Next story is Megan Good and Jonathan Majors, an interesting couple, have received new passports at a ceremony in Conakry. I think it was last week or the week before. Yeah, it was last week. Last week they were in Conakry, Guinea, which is a neighbor of Sierra Leone. And I am also of Guinean descent. My father.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my maternal grandmother is from Guinea, from the Mandingo tribe. So I did not get Guinean citizenship, but I do have lineage that traces back to the Mandingo tribe in Guinea. So I was happy to hear this story. But yeah, well, let's play this video and then we'll have some more commentary on the other side.
The ceremony on Friday, during which Hollywood film stars Megan Good and Jonathan Majors received Guinean citizenship, with guests treated to a series of traditional dances and musical performances. The couple traced their origins to the country through DNA testing and were granted diplomatic passports from senior government officials. From now on, both of you, we believe that you're worthy sons and daughters of Guinea. From now on, you'll represent our country and its red, gold, and green flag all over the world. The pair married last year following a turbulent period in Major's life which negatively impacted his career. In 2024, he was sentenced in the United States to probation for the 2023 assault of his then-girlfriend. The actors landed in Conakry on Friday morning and were welcomed with much fanfare.
Just wanted to say thank you so much for receiving us with open arms and all the love that's been shared and all the just support and the feeling. It's good to be home.
We are that much more emboldened to come here, to come back home, and to help out any way we can, and really put us to work.
Guinea is not the first country to award citizenship to descendants of enslaved people as part of efforts to encourage them to reclaim their heritage and invest in the continent.
Well, there you go. So your thoughts, Ivy?
I think there's a lot of people who want this. There's a lot of people in the Black community in the US who want to feel a connection to another place that they find that their ancestors are from. And so I think it's great. It's an opportunity for them to be able to feel connected to the continent of Africa, as well as to experience it. They've been given diplomatic passports, which means that they can pretty much travel anywhere across the continent and beyond as well, as long as there's not any governmental restrictions of their country. They can use that passport anywhere they go without needing visas to go places because it's diplomatic. So I'm sure that they're going to be very excited to explore the continent of Africa with it. And just seeing their emotion, they look like they're very happy, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going from you know, his ex-girlfriend telling her she needs to be more like Coretta Scott King and Michelle Obama, because she was of European descent, to now being married to Megan Good and getting citizenship and diplomatic passport in Guinea is a complete 180 turn. So I am happy to see that he has made that shift, and he has made some adjustments to find his roots, because that was a very weird and interesting couple of months surrounding that tumultuous situation with him and his ex. You know, I was actually having this discussion with someone the other day because I'm big into the Marvel movies, and he was a main leading character who was supposed to be a part of what happened in the lore of these movies. And because of what happened with that situation that they mentioned here, that was all changed, and they're talking about bringing him back. But you know, it looks like he's turned some things around. Obviously, the two of them decided somehow, some way to trace their DNA. And I'm not sure exactly how this introduction was made to Guinea, but it's good to see that this is happening. And to your point, the diplomatic passports should be interesting. We will be following American law around the couple of bills that were passed last year, or that were presented to the they weren't passed, but they were presented. There are bills in the United States presented that would, if passed into law, that would restrict multiple citizenship. So we will see if those things go into effect. If they do, then unfortunately all of us who have multiple citizenship will have to revoke our citizenship in every other country. We'd have to revoke it and only keep the U.S. citizenship if we want to remain U.S. citizens. But we will see if that changes and if that happens. Fingers crossed that does not get signed into law, because all of this will be for naught, right?
I don't think it'll actually happen, to be quite honest with you.
I don't think so either, because there's probably a number of them who have Israeli citizenship. And so because of that, you can't really, they don't, unless they make a carve out for Israel, which is possible. I think it's unlikely. You know, there are also elections coming up in November. So the people who would bring this to a floor and vote on it may be different and may be objectionable to that. But they were introduced.
My thoughts were that it was not necessarily of the country you mentioned, but of like a lot of different countries, because there's a lot of corporate people, professionals, business owners, multinational people who do business in multiple countries, who get passports in other countries specifically for things like taxes being better somewhere else, and then registering a business in another country because they can evade certain taxes legally when they have another passport. So those are largely people who are at the, you know, top 5% earners who know to do those things. The average person working a 9-to-5 hustling away is not the average person who's getting these other passports specifically for business reasons. So I think that because of that, I think that the high level people being affected, I don't think it'll actually pass, to be honest.
That's a good point. Yeah, and a lot of people have these citizenship by investment programs. A lot of countries have those, and many American citizens take advantage of that. Not many, but American citizens who have
the ones who are in the top like 5 to 10%. People who are earning 7-8 figures that have these huge companies are the ones that tend to do it.
Yeah, and they have the ear of this administration, so it's unlikely that it will pass. That's a good point. That's a really good point. Okay, but yes, but it's good to see that more and more people are doing it. I do hope that more programs are done, and their legislative programs on the continent in different countries, not just by executive order, but actual legislative programs. And I know that's going to come up as, I think, one of the topics that we discussed. But I do hope to see that more countries actually put programs in place that codify it into law, so that more people can do this. So we will continue to watch, of course, around the continent as we hear more from different folks offering these different programs. With that, we move on to the D9 in Africa. So the AKA sorority had 500 members visiting Ghana for their Founders Day to reconnect with their roots. And so we're going to play a video to talk about this visit, and then we'll have some commentary on the other side.
Government's agenda to attract visitors to Ghana all year round beyond the traditional December, and that peak period has received a major boost with the arrival of 500 African Americans. They are members of the Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the first African American sorority founded in Howard University. The women are in Ghana to reconnect with their ancestral roots and to celebrate the 118th Founders Anniversary. Deputy CEO of the Ghana Tourism Authority, Gilbert Agri, popularly known as Abeku Santana, says the visit will strengthen Ghana's economic outlook and reflect the government's commitment to promoting year-round visits by the diaspora, not just in December.
This is an extremely historic moment for us as a country and for our image on the global stage, and also the African American community in the world. That in January you have a group of 500 people coming to Ghana, not any ordinary group, but a high net worth group like the Alpha group. They are one of the most influential African American communities in the world, with presence in the Caribbean, in America, and other parts of the world. And the Ghana Tourism Authority, under the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Creative Arts, deem it a great honor. It solidifies our position as the #1 cultural heritage destination.
All right, I'll leave it at that. There's a lot. It's a lot longer, but you know, and there was some other commentary to go along with this. I think you and I had spoken about Diallo and his thoughts beyond the fact that they're all coming. And I will mention that a friend of mine, Masa, she is an AKA, and I know that she has been instrumental in this process. And so I'm happy to see that she was able to work with her, you know, with the women of AKA to bring 500 people to Ghana. That's a large group of folks. So your thoughts on this and some of the thoughts that came out of this that you mentioned Diallo and others had been speaking about.
I think it's great. I think it's really good. It's just an example of how interested the diaspora community continues to be in coming to Ghana and connecting with the culture, the history, and some of the heritage, reconciling with, you know, ancestral past, and just having a new experience that people may not have had before, because traveling to an African country hasn't always been high on the list for people in the African American community, specifically, since it's African Americans who came. I'll mention that. And so I think it's good. And so many of them to choose their Founders Day celebration to be in Ghana, I think is a really good thing for the country. And it helps solidify Ghana as a place to travel to, not just in peak seasons like in December, but all year round. You can come and have great experiences.
Absolutely. And there was something there was something about well, one of the things I thought was interesting is he mentioned high net worth individuals and their spending power. I think that that's one of the things I hear a lot from different leaders on the continent. And I think a lot of times it leads people to believe that that's all they care about. And I do think it's important to discuss that. You know, a lot of people who come to the continent are people who are coming just for vacation. But when you have groups and organizations like this, there are going to be percentages, a good percentage of those people who are thinking about other things, investments, businesses, other things that are going to be beneficial to the society, and that's going to help you know, get Africa back to its rightful place on the world stage, right? And so I'm always excited to see large groups of people, organizations coming to the continent and meeting with different people in government, business owners, and the more exposure, the more trips that people take, the more, you know, rising tide floats all boats, right? I think we all benefit from people coming on these trips. So I look forward to seeing more people come. The AKA is just the first major of the D9 to bring a large group. There have been also smaller groups. I know that the AKAs were there last year in a smaller group. I met a few of them. I think one of the regional people or somebody who oversees, I can't remember which, I'm terrible with this, the D9 stuff, but she was a very senior member. And I remember meeting her and her talking about it was her first time ever in Ghana, and she can't wait to come back. And obviously she came back with a large group, right? 500 people. So I'm glad to see that, you know, one trip a year ago led to 500 people the following year. And so you can see how this can have a great impact. And I think some of the commentary outside of what we saw in this video is that we got to focus not just on December, but other parts of the year, right? You know, and of course, obviously, December is going to be the most active time of year when most people tend to visit. But other, I mean, the country is around year round, right? And so we want to ensure that, you know, people are coming to the country and seeing the real country for what it is. Because if you know, some percentage of those people are going to want to move, they're going to want to invest, they're going to want to do business there. And I think December is almost always like an illusion. People think that the country operates like December year round, and it doesn't. So if you come outside of that peak season, you get a better feel for how the country is organized and operates. Yeah. So you're going to make better decisions, and you won't make such an emotional snap judgment decision that most people do when they come in December, right?
Very true.
Because I mean, I even made it, you know, after 4 days in 2019, a year later, I was living in Ghana. So yeah, many of us have made that decision. So it is smart to come at a different time of the year to really see how the country operates in an off-peak season.
And this definitely is the off-peak because it's right after people have left and everything just goes shh. So it's like January, like after the first week of January, because usually people stay until like January 7th. People are like leaving between like the 5th and 7th. And then that's when the calm starts to set in Ghana. People start to, you know, shift back into the regular working day and working routine and stuff. So so it's great. And this is something that you know, this group that came, it was not the government who engaged them to come. It was private organizations who collaborated with the AKAs. I'm not sure which company it was, but I know that Diallo Sumbri from the Adinka group spoke at their arrival at the airport. So I suspect that he's somehow has a part of some of them coming to Ghana. He's a member of the D9, so he's heavily invested in making sure that people who are within those organizations have excellent experiences when they come to Ghana.
Absolutely. Very influential organizations. I mean, you know, just for those who don't know, many people a part of the civil rights movement were members of the D9. Don't get me to saying who all of them were, but many of them were, including Martin Luther King and others. And also other prominent members of society that you all might recognize, people who've run for president previously, people who've run for different parts of Congress, who've been in Congress. So you guys are all familiar with them, especially if you've been, if you're a part of the D9. In fact, you have to learn it if you are pledging. So I'll let them tell you.
And I think Kwame Nkrumah was also
that's
part
right.
of he was also part of one of the fraternities.
Yes.
It was the Phi Beta Sigma.
Yes. And he went to an HBCU, by the way.
Yes.
He went to an HBCU, which is how he got so heavily involved in the Pan-African movement, actually. So it's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. So Ghana's first president, prime minister and president, later president, was a member of the D9. That's a really good point. And so that's the whole cyclical energy of Ghana. And that's why I think there's always been this open door in this movement between the two countries, for sure. All right, so moving on to the next story. This is a big one. According to the government of Ghana, Ghana has settled $1.47 billion in energy sector debt to restore power stability. So all outstanding gas invoices owed to energy partners ENI and Vitol paying around 480 million, and cleared about 393 million in legacy debts to independent power producers, including major suppliers such as Car Powership and Ken Power. I wish all countries in West Africa would do that. But with that, we will watch a video. We'll have some commentary on the other side.
The government of Ghana has announced it paid $1.47 billion in 2025 to clear long-standing debts in the energy sector, a move officials say restores stability and international credibility to the country's power system. According to the Ministry of Finance, the payments included $597.15 million to fully reinstate a World Bank partial risk guarantee that had been exhausted under previous administration. Officials say the comprehensive settlement, completed within President John Dramani Mahama's first year in office, marks a decisive reset of the power sector after years of arrears that threatened electricity reliability and investor confidence.
Yeah, your thoughts, Ivy, on this?
I thought you were going to give your thoughts first on this one.
Okay, well, I'll give my thoughts. So, I have some thoughts. So, you know, look, coming from a country where our debts are not settled, Salon, we have over $20 million in debt, and two administrations have not, and of opposite parties, have not settled that debt. And that is a long-standing challenge we have as people who spend time in Sierra Leone. Nigerians have a very similar challenge, as we have power outages in those two countries, in many countries. And what I find when I go to Ghana is power outages, although annoying, are very infrequent, few and far between in most areas of Accra, I should say, compared to my experiences in Nigeria, in Sierra Leone, in the Gambia. And Car Powership being one of those people who supply power to both the Gambia and Sierra Leone, and I'm not sure wherever else, that's one of the places that Sierra Leone still owes. I mean, at one point in time, it was $47 million in debt that they did not pay. And so the fact that under this new administration in Ghana, within 1 year, they cleared $1.47 billion in debt, paying over $400 million and $300 million, respectively, to two different organizations, is a tall feat, which tells me that that money has always been there and it has just not been spent properly. So those are my thoughts. I would leave it there. Your thoughts, Ivy?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that to be able to clear the debt, it's like, so where did the money come from? Was the money always there and it wasn't being used strategically to clear such a debt? Because 1.47 is a billion is a lot. And to have that cleared within the first year of President Mahama being in office it's absolutely amazing that that's been done, because if the country hadn't cleared the debt, it would just mean more negative implications, because then there would be, more borrowing, there might be higher interest rates, and then there's continued distrust from other institutions. Like global institutions will start to not have any level of trust in Ghana if they weren't able to pay back. And your credibility is so important around the world. And unfortunately, a lot of African countries are not standing on good credibility. And I know that the systems are typically designed against the African nations across the whole continent. And it is something that is hard for them to get out of. And I really believe there are things behind closed doors that we do not know as to why things don't operate the way they can operate. I think one of the most important outcomes of this is that Ghana has managed to restore its, I think it's a risk guarantee with the World Bank, I believe it is. And then it shows that people can have a little bit more of a comfortable feel more comfortable to invest in Ghana. Because if they feel like the country is at risk of collapsing because of, you know, crippling debt, they might not feel so encouraged to be like, well, why should I invest in a place where their debt might collapse the whole nation? So I think that what it does for investors is it gives them a level of confidence. The diaspora can feel a little bit more confident because they'll feel like the country is getting a little bit more stability. And so let's see if it also helps. You know, we've seen the currency, you know, got better and then it went down again. So it's kind of stabilized a bit, but it's still something that works in the favor of people abroad. Because I think right now 1 US is 12 Ghana, I think. And there was a point that it had dropped all the way down to 1 US was 10 Ghana, which is beneficial for those who are in Ghana, but not necessarily for those who are out. But the big picture of this whole thing is I think that it gives Ghana some credibility to show that they can pay off their debt and then make people feel more comfortable investing in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's huge. And, you know, I would ask anecdotally, you know, different people about why, you know, Mahama was a one-term president the first time. And many people would tell me there was a lot of power outages in the first administration.
Yes.
And I think most people blamed his energy minister, not him, but he was not reelected. And then you had 2 terms of the opposite party, but then he was elected again. And it looks like in his first year, he's kind of made up for lost time, right? I mean, he had 4 years. He saw how it works. So he's been able to accelerate progress in 1 year. So the things that people had seen as complaints under his first term, they are seeing corrected as a second term. I mean, I don't know if that's what you had saw while you were there. I think you confirmed that statement that I heard from so many Uber drivers. But yeah, I mean, that's what people told me.
Yeah, a lot of people were upset at him because of this excessive power outages when he was president. And it is a large part of why people voted him out, because they were not happy with that whole situation. And I do think that him coming back now, he has hindsight to work with, the experiences he had before. He's seen it behind closed doors. So he has been president before. He has been an elected president before this term that he's on. And he was also a by default president. I don't know if you are aware, or those who are watching, President Mahama was the vice president of Ghana under President Mills. And Mills died while he was president. And when Mills died, by default, Mahama became president because he was the vice president. So he became vice president, I think it was 2014. And then when the new election came up, election December 2016, he was elected. A lot of people were like, well, he's already president. He's just doing what President Mills was doing. So let's just vote him back in and he can continue with what President Mills was doing. I heard a lot of people say those things during that time. So he's been vice president and he's been president twice now. So yeah, so he has a lot of experience behind closed doors in that level of office to work with.
Yeah, and obviously he's made a lot of changes very quickly, right? I can't say enough about eliminating that energy debt. That money is not a small amount. Like I said, in Sierra Leone, it's around 25 to 30 million. I don't know what the most recent number is, but the last time I checked, and that has not been cleared. It was 47. I heard it got brought down to 20. But as far as I understand, the debt has not been cleared yet in Sierra Leone. And we're talking about 1.47 billion in Ghana. 2 different countries, 2 different sizes. I get it, but I'm just saying 1.47, 20, 1.7 billion, 20 million. It's 2 completely different numbers as well. So it's something that we all should strive for in our individual countries. And those of you who are from Nigeria, you know what we're talking about because you guys feel the same challenges. I have my friends in Niger, and lights don't go. Every time I talk, lights no day, no lights. So, you know, I always said that about Ghana. When I first went to Ghana, and I was only there for 4 days, and during those 4 days, the power went out once. And I was like, wait, they have light here? Because I presumed that we were going to have to, we didn't have a generator. And so I was like, I don't know if I want to stay at this Airbnb. We don't have a generator. Now, I understand that there are certain parts of the country where light goes out more often. And I'm not going to say that it's perfect, but just comparatively speaking, far and away better in terms of having power. I think in many parts of other West African countries, you have less light than you have light, right? And so, you know, people just, you know, people charge their phones. I know people who go to restaurants to charge their phone, right? Because the restaurants have generators.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, like that's, if that's your life where you have to go charge your laptop, then go back home to work, you know, these are the conversations I have with friends who live in other West African countries. So I'm happy to see that Ghana has been able to do that. And this is why Ghana has continued to have great PR and press, because they continuously do things like this. So that was the last story that we had to cover. Any final words before we go, Ivy,
we packed in a lot into an hour, so it's been a good conversation.
Absolutely. And those who haven't already, make sure you go follow Ivy on all platforms. Of course, it's Ivy Prosper everywhere. Her name is right here on the screen. I am under Authentic African on YouTube. On Instagram, it's authentic_African. On TikTok, there's 2 underscores. Don't ask me why, long story. But if you just look for the logo, you know it by now. Subscribe, follow on all platforms, and share this content with anybody you know. People who are planning to come to the continent, who are thinking about Ghana in particular, and they want to know about what's happening in country. Obviously, Ivy is a wealth of knowledge, having worked for the Tourism Authority, having lived for a substantial amount of time there, also being a journalist. So there's journalistic integrity. So all of those things means that you get the truth and the facts from Ivy. So make sure you pay attention and follow along with everything Ivy has going on, and come to these live streams every other week to hear stories and what's going on in Ghana. So with that, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys all in 2 weeks.
See you next time.